Today, we're going to be talking about an AEW star whose contract is expiring soon, possibly on her way out of the company. Also, in addition to that, we're going to talk about a huge update surrounding Warner Bros. Discovery. Now companies are actually making bids. What does this mean for AEW? This is going to be a story that we continue to talk about as it continues to progress, but today's updates are absolutely huge, and we are going to talk about a massive update to the Andrade situation. I know I told you guys I was done talking about Andrade, but there was some things said in the last time we talked about it, and there's a huge update that kind of goes against that. And as always, it's my responsibility to update you when necessary. And as always, if you guys want more videos like this, don't forget to click that subscribe button and ring that bell. I want to kick things off with Andrade, and I don't want to spend too much time talking about Andrade, but it is important that we do talk about Andrade because I had asked a plenty amount of questions, like an absurd amount of questions, honestly, regarding Andrade's situation at the Crash. And of course, this is a big topic because there's this narrative that's going around where it's like, okay, Andrade's hard to work with. He's like walking out of events and doing all these different things. And it's not that I necessarily said anything negative about Andrade, but I basically questioned Andrade and his situation because of all these headlines. And I think those are very valid questions. But today there was a huge update on the Talk and Shop podcast. Carl Anderson actually addressed these reports of Andrade, and he basically said there were reports that Andrade, the champion, was there and left in a heap and was angry and got in trouble and left. I'm here to say that I was there with Andrade, side by side with him, doing the signing with the fans, lots of incredible fans in Tijuana. He confirmed that him and Doc Ellis were present during the match and actually said exactly what he witnessed. He said signing was finished. He went backstage. We went backstage. He watched us win the Tijuana Crash Lucha Libre Tag Team Championships. He watched the entire show. We left before Andrade left as soon as our match was finished. His face was smiling and it was happy and he was fine and there was no heat, no issues in the story, non-issue. So this is like pretty much the opposite of what everybody was anticipating to expect. I think this pretty much confirms that Andrade just... his non-compete clause doesn't allow him to wrestle. I think that's literally the situation we're looking at. I don't think he's allowed to wrestle for AEW. I don't think he's allowed to wrestle for companies in Mexico or for companies in any other country. That's kind of what I'm leaning towards. But good to hear there wasn't some sort of drama with this. That brings us to our next topic, guys. We got to talk about it. AEW, WBD, what's going on? There's been so much talk about this. There's been so much talk about Warner Bros. Discovery. And the Hollywood Reporter came out and reported that 3 official bids have now come in for Warner Bros. Discovery. This is kind of scary, though, because the bids come from WBD, or the bids for WBD come from Netflix, NBC Universal, and Paramount. And not every bid is for the entire company. So let's kind of talk about that for a second. So WBD is putting themselves up for sale. We don't know the specific details on these bids, obviously, in terms of like how much money per share, whatever it may be. However, the report added that WBD and David Zaslav are expected to hold 2, maybe 3 rounds of bidding, which is their hope of pushing the price upwards. And essentially, these companies are looking to acquire WBD. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that they will acquire all of the TV networks. For example, it's rumored that Netflix and Comcast, NBC Universal, are looking at owning like the streaming properties, right? Like the DC Comics and the things that they own, their film studios, things of that nature. Something else that came out was Netflix apparently is still going to release Warner Bros. Discovery films in movie theaters, which is kind of interesting, right? Because Netflix is obviously a streaming platform. They're in competition with the theaters. But apparently if they were to have their bid accepted, they would publish their movies in the theaters and then maybe come to Netflix after or something like that. There's a reason why this is such a big deal, though. Paramount has ties to TKO. because of the UFC deal. Netflix and WWE have the Raw deal and the international WWE PLEs and events, right? Then on top of that, NBC Universal has a deal with WWE through USA Network and Peacock, and of course, Saturday night's main event. So all three companies are in bed with TKO properties. So if one of these three companies do actually own Warner Bros. Discovery, then you start looking at a situation where maybe AEW, when it comes to their next TV deal, gets forced off of their TV deal. That's the reality that we're looking at here. That is the scary part. And I don't know. I mean, I said years ago, WWE is kind of smart for this because they're going into bed with so many different TV companies that all they're essentially doing is making it harder for AEW. And I think that's exactly what is happening here. They are making it harder for AEW. We shouldn't panic yet, but the reality is going to set. If one of these three companies own it, things are going to be pretty bad for AEW. And I actually agree, by the way. Tony Khan has been saying a lot publicly, hey, our relationship with Warner is amazing. I believe that. I really do believe that. But if those executives are gone and they're acquired by another company, that's where it becomes problematic. That's where I think it becomes slightly an issue. And that's where maybe we'll have to panic at that point in time. But we'll see, obviously. And that brings us to our final topic. Anna Jay is apparently potentially on her way out of AEW. There's no confirmation on this, obviously, but it was reported that Anna Jay's contract is expected to be up in the next few months. This was first reported by Fightful Select. However, there is something very interesting about this. There is no news regarding them renegotiating their contract. So that's the kicker here. Normally, when somebody's contract ends in a few months, they enter a renegotiation period. AEW has actually been very excellent about this kind of thing. This is something that we often complain about with WWE. Sometimes people's contracts expire, like we just saw with Santos Escobar. His contract expired, and then they weren't renegotiating before that, and then they re-signed him, right? That's like a WWE thing. AEW is pretty good about this. If there's contracts ending, they start renegotiating. They try to get them re-signed for the long term. It is being said that AEW would like to keep Anna Jay. We don't have confirmation on any sort of renegotiations. A source in AEW could have said that they want to keep her, but what is Tony Khan's plan? And then what is Anna Jay's plan? This is kind of hard to say because Anna Jay has been with the company for a very, very long time. She debuted during the pandemic era, 2020. She's wrestled a lot for AEW and Ring of Honor. This is a girl who's been a really good contributor to AEW, but she hasn't won any championship belts. She hasn't received any massive pushes. You have to wonder if maybe this is a particular situation in which she would leave the company and go to WWE or go to another company, maybe go to Stardom, that kind of thing. Listen, I like Anna Jay a lot. I think Anna Jay fits AEW. I think AEW should keep Anna Jay. I would like to see her resign. If she were to leave the company, it's not that it immediately impacts AEW, but if she were to leave the company, I don't think there's a set guarantee that she would come back to AEW. This is one of those things where maybe it's like Mariah May, where, hey, I'm a free agent. I'm going to see what other options there are and then go from there. But if you're Anna Jay, I think the right move would be to stay with AEW. Some of these talents that I've seen from the pandemic era, I feel like they belong in AEW and they should be secured long term. That's kind of how I view it. But if she does leave the company, I'll keep you guys updated. A lot of possibilities here. A lot of big things happening. Make sure you click subscribe.